Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This time, we're taking a deep dive into Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh yeah, a classic.
It really is. First published way back in the 1930s.
Wow.
And still incredibly popular today.
Timeless.
Exactly. And today, we're going to explore why.
I think what's so fascinating about Carnegie's work is how he really seemed to understand something so fundamental about human nature. This deep-seated need we all have to feel important and validated.
And that's really at the core of building genuine connections, right?
Absolutely. It's not about manipulation or tricks. It's about recognizing that everyone, no matter who they are, craves that sense of significance.
And that leads us to one of his most famous principles,
Oh yeah, the don't criticize, condemn, or complain.
which on the surface can seem a little counterintuitive.
Right. Especially in a world where we're constantly told to give and receive feedback.
Why would Carnegie advise against criticism?
Well, because he understood that criticism, even when we think it's well-intentioned, often backfires.
It can make people defensive
Exact.
and less open to change.
Yeah. Carnegie was really ahead of his time in recognizing the power of empathy.
He understood that to truly connect with someone, you need to see the world through their eyes, to understand their perspective.
And he has so many great examples in the book about how this works in practice.
Oh, absolutely. One that comes to mind is the story about the manager who completely transformed his relationship with a difficult employee.
Oh yeah, instead of reprimanding him, he just started asking him about his hobbies.
He took a genuine interest in him as a person.
And that simple act, just acknowledging the employee's passions outside of work, created this bridge.
Where there was once a wall.
It's powerful stuff.
It really shows how much we all crave to be seen and valued for who we are.
And that's something we can all do, no matter what our role is or what kind of relationships we're trying to build.
It makes me think about another one of Carnegie's principles, the art of active listening.
Ah, yes. So important and yet so rare these days.
It's so easy to get caught up in our own thoughts or to be distracted by our phones.
We think we're listening, but are we really? Are we fully present?
Carnegie argued that truly listening to someone, giving them your undivided attention, is one of the most powerful gifts you can give.
In our age of constant distractions, that kind of deep listening is almost a revolutionary act.
I'm curious, how often do you feel truly heard?
That's a good question. Not as often as I'd like to admit, I think.
There's something so validating about knowing someone is really present with you, taking in your words without judgment.
And that's what builds trust and deepens connection.
It's not about agreeing with everything someone says.
No, it's about making them feel understood.
Like in that story about the salesman who won over a notoriously difficult client simply by listening to her complaints.
Oh, I love that story.
He didn't argue or dismiss her concerns, he just listened patiently and acknowledged her frustrations.
And that completely disarmed her.
By showing that he understood her perspective, he created a space for a genuine connection.
Powerful stuff.
So we've talked about understanding human nature and active listening, but how does this all tie into the idea of influencing people?
Right, because the word influence can have a bit of a negative connotation.
It can sound manipulative.
Exactly. But Carnegie wasn't talking about coercion or trickery.
It's more about ethical persuasion.
Yes, understanding how to motivate people in a way that's authentic and aligned with their own interests.
One of his key principles is to talk in terms of the other person's interests.
Right, which doesn't mean manipulating them.
It's about understanding their needs and desires and framing your requests in a way that resonates with them.
Exactly. So it's less about me, and more about how can we find common ground.
It's about finding those win-win solutions where everyone benefits.
I like that. Win-win.
And that's how influence, when done authentically and ethically, becomes a powerful force for good.
Agreed.
Okay, so we're back, and we're diving deeper into these principles from Dale Carnegie.
Yeah, it's one thing to kind of talk about these ideas in theory, but I'm really curious to hear how you see them playing out in real life, like those nitty-gritty situations.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, how about negotiation? I mean, that's something we all face, whether it's a big business deal or just like figuring out where to go to dinner with friends.
Right. Even something as simple as like what movie to watch.
Yeah, exactly.
All a form of negotiation. And Carnegie gives us these tools to navigate those situations more effectively.
So it's not about like trying to win or dominate the other person.
No, not at all. It's about collaboration.
Yeah.
About finding those solutions that work for everyone involved.
And that comes back to that principle we were talking about earlier.
Oh, you mean talking in terms of the other person's interests?
Yeah. Like if I'm trying to convince my partner to go to that new sushi place, instead of just saying, hey, I want sushi.
Which might not get you very far.
Right. I could say something like, hey, I heard this new sushi place has a really cool outdoor patio. I know you love trying new places, and I think you'd really appreciate the ambiance.
There you go.
So I'm appealing to their interests, making it more enticing.
Exactly. You're not just pushing your own agenda, you're finding that common ground.
And this applies to bigger things too, right? Like business negotiations or family discussions.
Oh, absolutely. The key is to figure out what the other person truly cares about and frame your requests in a way that aligns with their values.
Okay, so now let's talk about conflict.
Uh-oh, everyone's favorite topic.
Right. Well, it's inevitable.
It is. It's part of life and part of relationships.
But Carnegie had some really interesting things to say about how to handle conflict effectively.
Yeah, one of the things that really stood out to me was this idea of letting the other person save face.
What does that mean?
Well, it means recognizing that direct criticism often just makes things worse.
It makes people defensive.
Exactly. And then they're less likely to listen to what you have to say. So instead of attacking or blaming, Carnegie suggests approaching conflict with a little bit more humility.
So, like, even if I disagree with someone's actions, I can still acknowledge their effort or their good intentions?
Yeah, something like, hey, I really appreciate all the hard work you put into this project. I can see how much you care about it. I do have some thoughts about maybe tweaking a few things going forward, and I'd love to hear your input.
Okay, so it's more about collaboration and respect.
Right. You're not dismissing their perspective. You're inviting them into the conversation.
And that makes them more open to hearing what you have to say.
Exactly. And that ties into another principle. Begin with praise and honest appreciation.
Even in the middle of a disagreement.
Especially in the middle of a disagreement. Because finding something genuine to appreciate about the other person can actually help de-escalate the situation.
It's like you're disarming them with kindness.
In a way, yeah. But it has to be sincere.
No empty flattery.
Right. It's about finding something you truly value about the other person, whether it's their effort, their dedication, or a particular skill they bring to the table.
And by acknowledging those positive attributes, you create a foundation of goodwill.
Exactly. It makes it easier to then address the areas where you might disagree.
Now, Carnegie also talked a lot about the importance of perspective taking, right?
Oh, absolutely. Trying to see things from the other person's point of view.
That walk a mile in someone else's shoes idea.
Right. But Carnegie actually gives us some really practical steps to cultivate empathy and understanding.
He suggests asking yourself, how would I feel if I were in their shoes?
It's such a simple question, but it's so powerful because it forces you to step outside of your own ego and your own biases.
And really try to understand where the other person is coming from.
Exactly. And it all comes back to being genuinely interested in other people.
Not just pretending to be interested.
No, but truly cultivating that curiosity about their lives, their experiences, their dreams.
I remember that story from the book about the man who transformed his entire social life by simply becoming a better listener.
Well, yeah. He just started asking people questions about their lives, their passions. And he was truly engaged.
And people were drawn to him.
They felt seen and heard and valued.
And he became known as this charismatic, engaging person simply because he took the time to connect with others.
It's amazing how much of a difference that can make.
It's easy to get caught up in our own heads.
Right. We focus on our own worries, our own to-do lists.
And we miss those opportunities for genuine connection.
Yeah. We become so fixated on broadcasting our own thoughts and opinions that we forget to tune into the frequencies of the people around us.
But when we do shift our focus outward, it opens up a whole new world.
A world of understanding, of empathy, of connection.
But this is all easier said than done, right?
It does take conscious effort. I won't sugarcoat it.
I mean, we live in a world that often feels so competitive, so individualistic.
It's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of our own goals and ambitions.
So how do we actually integrate these principles into our daily lives? How do we move beyond the theory and into action? It's so easy to get caught up in that like me mentality.
It really is.
Yeah.
Especially these days.
Yeah.
So much of our culture reinforces that kind of self-focus.
Absolutely. But Carnegie reminds us that true fulfillment comes from connection, from building meaningful relationships.
And he gives us those practical tools to do just that.
So how do we actually start putting this into practice? Like, where do we even begin?
Well, I think a great starting point is to really focus on becoming a better listener.
Oh, yeah. Active listening.
Exactly. And I know we've touched on this before.
Yeah.
But it's so crucial Because so often we think we're listening,
Yeah.
but we're really just waiting for our turn to talk.
Or we're thinking about a million other things.
Or scrolling through our phones or, whatever distractions are around.
So many distractions.
Right. But to truly connect with someone, we have to be present.
We have to put down the phone, make eye contact.
And really focus on what they're saying.
It's about creating that space where they feel heard.
And understood.
Not just like waiting for our chance to jump in with our own thoughts.
Exactly. It's about asking clarifying questions, resisting that urge to interrupt.
Or offer solutions before they've even finished speaking.
Right.
It's amazing how much you can learn when you actually just shut up and listen.
It is.
Sometimes what people really need is not advice or solutions, but just to know that someone is really listening to them.
To feel seen.
And validated.
Yeah. And another thing we can all do, no matter who we are or what our circumstances are, is to make a habit of expressing genuine appreciation.
Oh, I love that.
Look for those opportunities to thank the people in your life.
Big or small.
Exactly. Whether it's a handwritten note to a colleague.
Or just telling your partner how much you appreciate them.
Those small acts of kindness can have a huge ripple effect.
Because it's all about acknowledging the contributions of others.
Yeah, recognizing that their efforts matter.
But it has to be sincere. Oh, absolutely. Don't just go through the motions.
Right.
Find something you genuinely appreciate about the person.
Yeah.
And express it authentically.
It reminds me of that great quote from the book.
Which one?
You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you.
So true.
It's all about shifting our focus from self-promotion to genuine interest in others.
And when we do that, amazing things can happen.
Well, I feel like we've just scratched the surface of this book.
It's so rich with wisdom.
But hopefully this deep dive has given our listeners some tools and inspiration to start building stronger, more meaningful relationships.
I hope so. It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Me too. And to our listeners, we encourage you to pick up a copy of How to Win Friends and Influence People and continue exploring these principles for yourselves.
It's a book that truly has something for everyone.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time.